much, Jenno, and I'm very humbled to be with such a wonderful panel here. My colleagues have obviously done extraordinary work and put a lot of thought and research into the methodologies associated with behavior change, and it gives great hope for all of us to move forward together as we endeavor to educate for climate change. Now, I want to take a little bit of a poll, which I feel a little trapped behind this desk. I'd love to be out there walking amongst you, but it's not going to happen here. It's okay. I think I'll be all right. So I want to ask you, how many here are here because you are educators? Okay, so maybe a healthy smattering. How many of you are here because you are motivated by your faith background to learn and apply some of these things? I know they're fairly representative, but not everybody, clearly. We've seen the kind of a spectrum of how to approach this. The area of values is extremely interwoven with faith, I would have to say, but also psychology and sociology and so forth. I'm going to share with you the story of the American Baha'i community and how it has approached climate change education. See, it's actually a fairly exciting story. I'm not an educator, but I've become one by default, simply because of the demand for education for sustainable development. How many are familiar with UN Decade of Education for Sustainable Development? The decade. Just a few. Ishmael mentioned it. Back in 2005, the Decade of Education for Sustainable Development commenced, and UNESCO was the lead agency for that. And in the kind of mandate for the decade, faith communities were recognized as key partners in education for sustainable development. Now, a lot of times we think of the formal sector, but this is non-formal education, and it happens all the time through different organizations and through different means. We educate each other through the things that we do. And I really became excited when I saw that the faith communities were actually recognized as a potent source of and a key partner for educating for sustainability. And I convened a group in the U.S. under the U.S. Partnership for Education for Sustainable Development. That was just the faith core of that. It was called the faith sector of the partnership. And we looked at the decade, and we looked at our various faith teachings. There were Buddhist, there were Jewish representatives, there were Christian, both Catholic and Protestant, Baha'i, and others. And we collectively determined that there was a lot that faith communities could actually do for the decade. We all really have a strong interest in promoting values for sustainability. If not, what are we doing? And we want to translate those values into action. Ismail talked about that. It's so important you not just have the words and you have the ideas, but that you figure out how to translate them into behavior, both on the individual, but on the community level as well. And in our institutions of governance, change has to take place at every level. Now, we're here at COP21, and doing the COPs for 21 years. We are finally, I think, at a stage where we're making significant progress. And part of that is the recognition of the deep ethical and moral values that lie at the core, the heart of solving the climate problem. So, what have we done? Well, in the U.S. Baha'i community, Arthur mentioned the Wilmette Institute. It's an online course, which has been wonderful, and it's, of course, been taken by many people around the world. And that has been extraordinary. But my involvement has been more in the hands-on educating. And we have schools in the Baha'i community. There's one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and one in the middle of the country, where we have, it's like a retreat center, and you can go and spend 4 or 5 days And we've developed programs over the years that have drawn on a number of resources, which I'm going to share with you. First of all, we do educate broadly for sustainability, but climate change is an integral part of that, okay? Our objective in the courses that we've run has been to make a deeper connection, a heart connection, if you will, with our relationship with the environment. There is a theory called nature deficit disorder, and that recognizes that children these days have often become disconnected from nature, and a lot of screen time. They're focused on a lot of screen time, but to get outdoors, to be in nature, to develop a love for nature, just doesn't happen as often as it did before social media was such a great force. And there is a wonderful resource put together by a world-renowned educator he comes from the Buddhist persuasion, but we have used his activities, and I would recommend them to all of you. If you just go online to Sharing Nature Worldwide, Joseph Cornell is the educator, and he has a 4-step pedagogy which can be used by families, they can be used by communities, and they focus on the 4 stages are generating an excitement, because you want to get attention and interest, and then focusing more closely, and then direct experience, and then reflection, okay? And we found it to be incredibly effective. We started working with a group we call junior youth, 11 to 14-year-olds, several years ago. And we found this program to be transformative. Many of them had never been in the woods before, and they had no desire to go in the woods, quite frankly, when we started the program. They came out of the program completely turned around on that. They really wanted to spend more time in nature. They said they felt a deep calm when they were in the woods, in their magic spot. We had them pick spots to sit and do their meditation and to reflect and to write. And this was only after taking them through these 4 steps of learning and immersion. Half our program is that kind of thing. It's outdoors. We've developed a program now for entire families. We call it Families as Agents of Change for a Sustainable World. The materials that we draw on include the Baha'i writings, because that's our for us, it's our source of values, if you will. And the International Environment Forum website, which is www.iefworld, has our materials on that site. So if you're interested in getting them, the compilation of Baha'i writings that we use is there. So we start with a deep immersion in the environment and our relationship with it, and we move into a whole day on climate change. From that, we spend a full day on food and food systems, because the connection between how we eat and how we produce our food and climate change is very much interwoven. And then we have a day on consumption and materialism. What is our relationship with the material world? This is a critical question today, particularly in the wealthy parts of the world, where we tend to be oversaturated with a material perspective. Then in other parts of the world, of course, there's not enough, and people are deprived of having enough. Themes that come out, of course, are justice and the interconnectedness, and driven by everything is the oneness of humankind. We are a single people on a single planet. The Baha'i faith has that as its core teaching, and it animates every other thing that we do. What else do I want to say about this? Oh, very, very hands-on learning. We use the arts extensively. We start day 1 by creating a mural based on a Baha'i quote. And the quote starts out, "Whatever I behold, I readily discover that it maketh thee known unto me." So we look through nature and we can see God's attributes reflected in nature. We see that there's 2 ways to really learn about nature. One is from divine teachings of all the religions, and the other is through science and through nature, actually. There's some activities that I'll share with you briefly. One is, it's called Meet a Tree. So you pair off and you put one person has a blindfold on, and the other person guides that person over to a tree in a grove of trees. That person feels the tree, they smell it, they can touch it in any way, they can sense where they are without using their eyes. Then they're led back, and they take the blindfold off. They have to go find that particular tree. This heightens our observation skills. Another one is camera, where one person is the camera, the other one is the photographer. I would take Victoria's head, that's the camera, and she would have her eyes closed, and I would set her up for a photo. And then I would tap her shoulder, her eyes would open, and she would see whatever I put before her. We're out in the woods. And then I'd tap it again, and her eyes would close. You can do a panoramic shot. You can do a close-up, or you can just do a big picture shot of anything glorious in nature. These kind of activities really sensitize us to the beauty of the natural world around us. And another reason why we do that is in the Baha'i writings, there are allusions to nature in almost every writing. And if we don't know what those allusions refer to, then how are we going to really connect with those writings? So that's that. Lastly, I'll tell you about another activity that we do, which is called the council. If you will, a pickup from something that started back in the 60s, but it's very powerful. And what we do is we have a whole notebook full of one-pagers that describe a species on each page. And different. We have over 50 species in this notebook. The participants pick one of those pages and they study up on that species, its characteristics, its attributes, and its habits, and also the impact of climate change on that species. And then they create a mask. They create a mask to become that species. And at the conclusion of that, this takes a couple of days, for an hour or two each day. That next evening we have the council, and everyone is in character, if you will. They come in with their masks on. We come around a council fire, and they speak on behalf of that species to the two-leggeds, to the humans. And they say, one, the attributes and the virtues that species embodies that could be useful to humans in making the transition to a sustainable climate, and then also how they've been impacted. It's a very powerful experience. I think I'm going to stop there because it's already after 2. Well, how long do we go? 2:30. So let me just finish with one thing. I've asked my colleagues to help me out with this. This is my excuse for no PowerPoint. Okay, so this poster, which you won't be able to read from your seat, I just wanted you to get the sense of scope. This is a poster that went to the World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development. It was created cooperatively by 13 different faith-based organizations. Each one of those faith-based groups has a program of education for sustainable development and climate, and it's tied directly into their faith perspective. It ranges across the faith spectrum, and I'd be happy to talk with anybody about it after the session. Just come on up and see me. So thank you very much.